I am here today to talk about avoiding a real war of roses and what to do after the divorce bomb drops. Now, if you're the one who made the decision, you've been on the fence for months, years, or decades, and now you've told, and it would make perfect sense that you immediately go to fear and paralysis and, oh my God, what do I do next? And if your spouse made the decision and they've been thinking for a while, then you feel a little bit hit by an emotional 18-wheeler and you need some time and space. Today's episode is about these early stages and how to have a smart start and enter divorce on the right foot. And so we're going to be looking at legal rights, finances, and how to live under the same roof together, how to talk to the children. So it's a quick lesson on all things early stages once the divorce decision has been made. And so I want to start with legal rights because I've spoken recently to many people who are beginning to have conversations with their spouse, beginning to make decisions and even agreements without knowing their legal rights. And so early on, you want to understand what the process is and what your rights are. And if you've been in a high conflict situation and your spouse is the more difficult personality, they may be telling you what you are and aren't going to get and what isn't going to happen. And you do not want to be listening to that. They don't know any better than you do. And so you want to get that advice directly from an expert. Now, I can tell you a lot, but I am not an attorney. And so when it comes to legal rights, you want to speak to not any attorney, but a family law attorney, and not anywhere in your state, but in your jurisdiction, so that you're crystal clear on your rights in your situation. The second thing that you want to do, and this isn't necessarily in order, everyone's situation is different. So this is a list of things, and you may have different priorities than the other person listening. The second thing I'm going to mention is financial documentation. And so divorce ends up being about two things: sharing custody and finances, dividing finances and support. So there's five buckets altogether. I'll just list them really quickly. It's shared parenting time, it's shared decision making around the children, it's potential custody, child support, potential spousal support, and distribution of marital assets. So those are your five buckets. What you need to know, the finances is a big part of the negotiation. It's three of the five buckets. And so if you're the moneyed spouse and you're on top of the money, it'll be pretty easy to gather. If you're the non-moneyed spouse, maybe you know how to, and you pay the bills, but you don't know about the investments. And so what you want to do, especially if it's high conflict and you have any fear that documentation will be quickly hidden once you tell, then you want to gather as much of that as you can. And the most important thing is those tax returns, which you ultimately could get from the IRS. But you want to start gathering credit card bills, loans, mortgages, savings accounts, checking accounts, investments, anything you earn, anything you have, anything you spend. And that is going to serve you really well in the long run. So that's on the business of divorce, is knowing those legal rights and beginning to put a list together of your finances and start looking for some documentation that you can put aside. But there's the bigger piece, the, oh my God, yesterday, nothing had been said. Today, the decision has been dropped. That divorce bomb has been dropped. What changes? In some situations, nothing changes. And if you're the one who has been unhappy and you've mentioned divorce numerous times, and you do it this time, but you don't put actions to your words, there's no reason that your spouse is going to believe you. And so I want to talk about what might happen in the marital home. So if you're going to continue to live together, what can you do to change? What are your sleeping arrangements? Is there a place where one of you can sleep? So I have heard the couch. I was in the attic for 3 years. People move into the basement. Some people actually move into a bedroom with their kids, or they put the kids together, or they move into the guest bedroom. What can you do so that something changes in terms of your sleeping arrangements? And especially if you both can have private space with a closed door, that would be really valuable. I'm not going to get into all of the details, but if somebody's moving out of the master bedroom, it would be valuable for all of their stuff to move out so that the person staying in the room has privacy, can lock the door, doesn't have to expect the other person coming in. And then we look at the bigger households. So you have the common living area, the living room, the playroom, the kitchen. How are you going to divvy up that space? Is everybody going to just come and go? And if it's high conflict, that might not be best for the kids. And so you want to start considering, are there schedules, are there conversations, are there agreements that we might be able to have so that we can live more peacefully, so that it's not War of the Roses as we're living all under the same roof together. A big first conversation is also telling the children. And this is something, I have a whole podcast on it, so I'm just going to touch on a couple of top points here. If it's high conflict, the question is, do we tell them together, which is the general rule of thumb, or do I tell the children separately? The reason you would tell the children separately is if the other parent would break all of the rules, blame you, throw you under the bus, talk about it in a catastrophic way, put the children in the middle, say things that are inappropriate, like affairs, money issues, things like that. So if there's any concern that both parties can't come to the table, bite their tongue about their issues, and just let the children know this is happening. We love you. We're going to figure it all out. This is what we know. What we don't know, we'll tell you as soon as we do know. We love you. It's not your fault. We love you. So that's telling the children. If you can't do it together, then you may consider telling them separately. That's what I did to pour a foundation. If you can tell them together, then that's great. It's also a sign that you can do some collaborating. What I said earlier about even deciding about the common living area, you're going to be making really big decisions, really difficult decisions. You're going to be negotiating difficult topics. And so what happens in this early stage is going to be very informative. Are the two of you capable of talking through common living areas? Are you capable of talking through tasks that might have always been on one person's shoulders, like the food shopping, the cleaning of the house, the laundry, the cooking of meals, and how to begin to divvy that up, as it will be when the divorce goes further along? You may be afraid to do those things or even to tell the children this early on, and that's fair. Those are questions that you have to answer. It's really valuable to have a coach or an expert in divorce that you can use as a sounding board, because what you're thinking may not be true. It may not be best for the children or the household in general. And so having a sounding board and really being discerning about these decisions is going to be incredibly helpful. One of the biggest areas of resistance that parents have is shared parenting time early on. The stay-at-home parent or the primary parent has a really hard time with that, because you're giving up time that's been yours for how many years. And the other parent may still be working a lot of hours, and they may want it, they may not want it. It's very valuable, because when you do shared parenting, you learn a lot. The primary parent learns, how do I feel? Where am I judging? How are my kids doing? What do they need from me? And the other parent, who might have been told for years that you're a lousy parent and you can't do this, may need to get their footing and begin spending more time alone with the children, especially young children, to see that you can do this and that you are good at this. And if there's a parent who wants the time, but they really don't want to be parenting, that's going to become obvious. And so it's good information, whether good or bad situations come out of it, it's going to be very valuable information for negotiating permanent parenting time. And the other thing I want to say is, if you've been in a high conflict situation, you may have been walking on eggshells for a really long time. And if you don't start setting boundaries now, if not now, then when? So this is the perfect time to set boundaries. If you're being spoken to inappropriately, or if there is inappropriate conversations being having within earshot of the children, this is an opportunity to set a boundary and learn how to set and uphold that boundary. If you've been very people-pleasing and codependent and worrying more about him or her than about yourself, this is a great opportunity to start noticing that and making small pivots to be healthier. And the last thing I'm going to say is, there may be things that you do that have been codependent for a long time, and you're continuing to do them, but not out of codependence, not out of fear of retaliation or fear of something else, but rather because it's strategic, because right now it makes a lot of sense to do that. And so I'm throwing a tremendous amount at you. There's so much that goes into this early stage of having told, but not yet hiring the attorney or beginning the negotiations. And this piece here is so vitally important because it's your opportunity to start shifting the dynamic, the dysfunctional dance, and the emotional dynamic between you and your now soon to be ex. You're now co-parent. So the entire relationship begins to change. What I see happen so often is people never change this dynamic. They talk to the attorney, they do the finances, they go through the negotiation, and they get on the other side, and they're still in the same dysfunctional dance with their now ex, and they're angry and they're frustrated and they're triggered and they're complaining. The emotional work, the noticing your behavior, the changing your mindset, the finding ways to emotionally regulate, the having healthy conversations with your children needs to happen now. The sooner you start, the better you'll get at it. And the more streamlined, even post-divorce, your life will be, because you disentangle emotionally. And the last thing I'm going to talk about is what you do and don't say to the children. And I'm not talking about telling them about the divorce, but one of the biggest areas of confusion I've heard clients say is, well, I'm not allowed to say anything to my child about what they're experiencing. And there's a very big difference between saying your dad's a jerk and he's the cause and he's bad, or your mom did this and you shouldn't this, or you should that. That's very different from acknowledging your children's reality, which might be one of the things I did. I'll use an example, is when I told my children about the divorce, I said, Daddy doesn't want the divorce, and he's pretty upset about it. In fact, he's angry. And so you may hear Daddy be angry, and it's okay to ask him not to, and it's okay to come and talk to me. It might be a little bit hard, and I want to help you and support you and prepare you for that. Now, I didn't say anything bad about Dad, but they're living in tension. They're living in conflict. And for us to like put lipstick on a pig and make believe that that's not the case is not child-centric and is not healthy. And so we want to speak to what's real. I know there's a lot of tension in the house. I know you probably heard me and Mommy arguing with each other. And I want you to know that we both love you. And one of the benefits of us being under two roofs is we can live in peace. And I want you to always be able to come and talk to me. And so there are so many kind and gentle ways to talk about what is without mentioning or without putting down the other parent, but being honest and speaking truth to your children. When we don't speak truth to them, or when we say that's not really happening and everything's just fine, that is denying their reality, and that has its own psychological danger zones and damage. And so you don't want to do that. And so, in wrapping up, I want to say I'm so excited that we have a free workshop coming up. It's Overcoming Divorce Fear and Paralysis, and how to be confident and clear and create a plan for moving forward. And I'm doing this with a friend and colleague, Andrea Vatka, and it is on April 16th. It's in the show notes. The link to register is in the show notes. We're going to go into a lot more depth about this, and Andrea is going to talk a lot more about those early stages in the legal process and what you need to know and the finances and what you want to begin to gather. That's her wheelhouse. She'll be talking a lot more about that. And I'll be going into a lot more depth about the things that I just touched on really quickly here. And so we want you to avoid War of the Roses. That is not what we want your household to look like. And we want you to be set up to know what your next steps are, to not be worrying about something that's 6 months or 2 years down the road, but what you need to do right here and now. And so Overcoming Divorce Fear and Paralysis is a free workshop we're doing. Please register and join us. I would love to see you there. And I hope you got a lot of value out of today's episode. I'll see you soon.